Good afternoon, everybody, and I'd first like to start by thanking the organisers for accepting my proposal and inviting me to talk. It's an honour to be here. This cigarette card, which is one of the few antiques I own, shows very clearly what Lincelles was all about. As the officer of the guards said, the works with the bayonet were rapidly stormed. On the back it describes how the French occupied two redoubts of great size and strength. The guards advanced with fixed bayonets and under a heavy fire of grape stormed the redoubts and drove the French off the field. And that maybe all most of us need to know about this small action in August 1793. However, there are a number of issues, I believe, that are worthy of our attention. What I want to do in this talk is present that attack by the Guards Brigade in the context of the full day, and this is important so that you can see the actions of their Dutch allies. Secondly, I want to deal with the spelling. Lincelles as in the battle honour with a C, or Lincelles as in the place name with an S. And then I'm going to spend most of the talk highlighting issues that are associated with the commonly available maps of the battle. So in outline, this is how I will do that. The first thing I'm going to do is give you some brief notes about the campaign and the background to the day. Secondly, I'm going to briefly deal with the spelling issue, and then I'm going to spend most of the talk talking about mapping the battle. So, the action took place on the border between France and the Austrian Netherlands. As I'm sure most of you know, in 1792 the French invaded the Austrian Netherlands and then Holland, but by May had been driven back to their borders, their own borders. And so we're particularly interested in the area around Lille and Valenciennes. In July 1793, the siege of Valenciennes ended with an Allied victory, and this gave them a choice, a strategic choice as to what to do next. Paris was only 126 miles away, a few days march, and I guess if this had been 1814, that's the route they would have taken. But in 1793 the British government had ordered the Duke of York to attack Dunkirk on the coast, and likewise the Austrians were more interested in laying siege to the next fortress at Le Quesnoy. So we see the Duke of York on his way towards Dunkirk, and on the 18th of August he was close to the little village of Lincelles. In the morning of the 18th of August, while the Duke was marching towards Menin, the Prince of Orange decided that it was a good time to attack the French outposts, which were under the command of the future Marshal MacDonald. And so the Prince of Orange launched an overwhelming attack against the outposts at Lincelles and Le Bléton. Having taken the villages, the Prince of Orange withdrew most of his forces, leaving small garrisons of around 2,500 men combined at Le Bléton and Lincelles. Another future Marshal of France, Jourdan, with his colleague Beru and MacDonald, decided that they would in turn launch an overwhelming assault on the two villages to recover them. And so in the afternoon, Jourdan led 4,500 men against Van Nostit's 1,400 men, while MacDonald similarly outnumbered Van Drakstad's 1,000 men. As the French were approaching Lincelles, Van Nostitz sent off a messenger to Menin to ask the Prince of Orange for some reinforcements. The Prince of Orange in turn asked the Duke of York, who at 3 o'clock sent a message to Lake, in command of the Guards Brigade, telling them to get to Lincelles and help the Dutch out. As we've already seen, Lake promptly did that and forced the French from Lincelles, and consequently MacDonald retired from Le Blayton. The mapping issue that I've talked about revolves a lot around how did the Lake get to Lincelles, and so I will cover that in the later part of the talk. So in summary, the timeline for the day looks like this. The Prince of Orange attacked Lincelles at 5 o'clock and in the morning, just as the sun was rising, and the French then attacked the Dutch garrison somewhere between, depending on who you believe, between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Although, given that the Duke of York said he heard about it at 3 o'clock, suggests that it was toward the early part of that time period. The British Guards left Galouis somewhere between 2 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then attacked Lincelles at 6 o'clock. And the fighting, according to Wright, went on to nightfall at around 9:30. For the purposes of this discussion, the key time here is the Guards march for somewhere between 2 and 4 hours to Lincelles, based on this timeline. So let's talk about spelling. The place name is spelt with an S. It's like that in the modern maps, as you can see at the bottom. The carte d'état major, which was drawn up in the early 19th century, you can see that on the left. And the Cassini map in the 18th century, you can see on the right. And also earlier maps still back to the beginning of the 18th century. However, in 1811, the Guards Brigade were awarded Lincelles as a battle honour, the first battle honour of the French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars, and you can see it here on a Coldstream colour, and it's spelt clearly with a C. In his book The Noble Duke, Byrne said that the S on the Duke of York's campaign map was obscured, and consequently the Duke of York read it as a C. That may have been true, but there are other features that suggest it's not the whole story. If you look at the reports that Jordan, Barrou and Levasseur, the representative on mission, wrote after Lincelles, they, without exception, spelt it with a C. Also, the Prince of Orange's account, which you can also read, completed the set and spelt it both a C and an S. And I think the reason for this is that the Le Rouge map, which is specific to Lille and the surrounding area, which was drawn up in 1744, is the one exception to all the other maps I've shown where Lincelles is actually spelt with a C. And to complete the circle, there was or is a copy of this map in George III's map collection. So this may be the map that the Duke of York used, and may even be the one that Byrne saw. So for the rest of the talk, I'm going to focus on mapping the battle. I'm sure many of you will have seen this map. Morris's History of the Scots Guards includes a nice depiction of the Guards' attack on Lincelles. The key point I want to draw your attention to is how Morris has arranged the map. Where in his version, north is to the top of the map, which means that the Guards are attacking from the west. And he shows the main road to Menin shooting off to the northwest. Before him, Hamilton, writing in his history of the First Guards, used this map, which is very similar. In his case, north is to the left of the map, and again the road from Menin is shown going from the north. I think those two maps are based on this one, which is in the Royal Collection and has just been recently made available on the internet. And this is an interesting map. It's a very detailed map, but there are some issues with it. It shows the guards marching onto the field from the bottom right. It shows them also deploying into line from their march columns and then attacking the two main redoubts. Then in the top right, it shows the French being driven from the field by the guards, as you can see here. As I said, there are some issues with it. One of which is that it doesn't match the road layout as shown in the carte d'attaque major. There's a nicely detailed stream on the opposite side of the village to the redoubts, and that stream is shown flowing over the hill that Lincelles sits on. Thirdly, the church is in an odd position relative to the village based on the carte d'attaque major. And finally, there's no compass rose or scale on this map. As I said earlier, both Hamilton and Morris, looking at this map, assumed that to the left of the map was north. So if we orient it on that basis, what you can see is the French leave the field quite reasonably towards Bondues, which is what they actually did. However, it has the guards entering from the southwest, from the direction of Quesnoy-sur-Dule, and which is possible, but unexpected. I could rotate the map around all four ordinal points for you and demonstrate that actually it doesn't fit what we know about the wider context for the day, but I haven't got time to show you that today. You'll have to take my word for it. The next part of the talk, I need to introduce you to Captain Roger Morris, whose diary was recently published. In it, he lists a number of marches that in his case, the flank battalion marched on, and it shows how far they marched, or where they marched from and to, and how long it took. And from these data, you can calculate that the mean marching rate was about 1.5 miles an hour, which tallies pretty well with what's in Scharnhorst's military pocketbook, and the maximum rate is 2.4 miles an hour. And we can apply those numbers to the routes that Lake has been proposed to have marched on that day. If we look at Hamilton and Morris's maps, what they imply is that the guards marched from Galloway to Vervic, and then to Comines, which was garrisoned by the French, by the way, and then marched southeast, bypassing Le Blayton, where MacDonald was, before attacking Lincelles from the southwest or west. That's a march of 9 miles, which, given the march rates I've just given you, would be from 5.5 hours on average down to 3¾ hours if they got a spurt on. If we take the Royal Collection map and assume that the top of the map was north, then it suggests that this is the march that the guards went on, i.e. back to Menin, down the main road to Lille from Menin, and then turning off just shy of Bondues to Lincelles, attacking Lincelles from the southeast. That's a march of 12.25 miles, and the time for that is an unlikely 5 to 7¾ hours. There was, however, another map which was published in 1801 and clearly hadn't been seen by Morris or Hamilton. And this map shows the guards starting out from Galloway, crossing the River Lys at the pontoon bridge, which was near Bousbec, and then advancing down the main road from Lincelles to Menin. And this is a detail from the same map. attacking the position at Lincelles from the northeast and east. This map is supported by and probably based on, in part, the account of the Prince of Orange, who described his attack at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I've tried to map it out for you here. He sent one of the Guards battalions frontally at the redoubts in front of Lincelles here, and another attacking around them from the north into the village itself. And he's clear, based on his approach, that the redoubts that the French occupied were to the northeast of the village. And so this route, suggested by that map, consists of a march of only 6 miles and brings us within the time slot available in the timeline I quoted earlier on, 2.5 to 3 3/4 hours. I now want to show you the battlefield in a bit more detail. This is based on the carte d'état major. The green bits are all orchards surrounded by hedges. And you can see here the main features of the town. Appropriately, I've used Burns' inherent military probability, a bit old-fashioned, to estimate where the 2 main redoubts were. And they're somewhere in that circle. The key point is their fields of fire have to cover the main approaches from Menin, as the 2 redoubts each cover one of the roads, and there's a slight hump between them, so one redoubt would not have done it. So I'm pretty confident that they would have been there and thereabouts, and Murray says that they were near the high road, so I think that's we can be fairly certain they were somewhere in that circle. This map also shows a 3rd redoubt, which was on the other side of Lincelles, and this was constructed during the day by an engineer named Berg, who the Prince of Orange had specifically left behind with the garrison to construct this redoubt and to destroy the main redoubts on the other side of the village. And similarly, this redoubt is positioned to try and cover the main routes from Lille towards Lincelles. So this map shows Jourdan and Beru approaching Van Neuster's garrison in the afternoon, and the photograph on the left shows the road up which Jourdan would have approached, and the one on the right shows Beru's approach. And you can see it's a gradual but steady hill climb up to the position of the Dutch redoubt. And this map shows the positions of the Guards at the beginning of their attack. The position I put the northern redoubt in actually sits underneath the current town hall, and the picture on the left shows that, and the one below it gives you some idea of the slope up which the Guards would have climbed. The other redoubt is in a rather nondescript part of the town, but even that gives you some idea of the slope. As the cigarette card said, the Guards stormed through the redoubts and the village and drove the French off towards Bonduis. There was a small counterattack that was launched by Jourdan at the end of the day, but it didn't go anywhere before they retreated. As Jourdan said, it was a rout. So finally, I want to give you some brief conclusions. The Dutch were massively criticised on this day. They were criticised by the British throughout the whole of the campaign, it's fair to say, from the Duke of York downwards to anybody who could hold a quill and had some paper. However, on this day, it's probably not deserved. Van Neuster's was attacked from 2 directions by 3 times his own numbers of Frenchmen. He lost nearly 20% of his men, and he lost his own life. He was mortally wounded. Secondly, it clearly wasn't just the Duke of York who spelt Lincelles with a C on this day, and I think we've identified the map that caused the confusion. Thirdly, the common maps about the Guards' attack on Lincelles are inaccurate, and in fact they most probably attacked from the northeast. And this map again shows the march of the Guards, and the photograph on the left shows the start line, or the probable start line for the Guards' advance, and the photograph on the right gives you some idea of the slope they would have climbed in their attempt to tackle the redoubts in front of Lincelles. Finally, I need to acknowledge a few people. Both Paul and Gert have very much encouraged this project over the last few years, and Paul brought back from Vincennes for me the French reports that I've shown you extracts of today. Gert drew my attention to the 1801 map, and I also want to he also shared other research with me. I also want to acknowledge Jan Brunnen, whose website is a trove of information on the Dutch army. My wife drove me around Lincelles last month and took the odd photograph for me, and obviously none of this work is possible without the work of the many people who work in the archives both here and in France. So thank you for your attention. This slide shows some of my other work, and the reason I do all this is mainly to fight games for toy soldiers, and if you want to see some of those, you can look out for me on my YouTube channel. Thank you.